Today's guest is someone who understands both sides of the alcohol conversation in a very real way. Ruby Williams is a certified senior alcohol freedom mindset coach, life coach, and former alcohol industry insider who spent more than 2 decades working in wine and champagne sales and also in marketing. In other words, she's helped convince people that alcohol was the centerpiece of celebration, success, and relaxation. I think we can all identify with that. But after re-examining her own relationship with drinking, Ruby took her experience in a completely different direction. Now she helps high-achieving midlife women explore alcohol with curiosity instead of judgment. Her work focuses on what many people call gray area drinking. Those moments when you might not identify as having a drinking problem, but you start to question how alcohol is affecting your energy, your health, your relationships, and also your sense of purpose. Through compassion-based coaching, neuroscience, and mind tools inspired by the Naked Mind methodology, Ruby helps women build new coping skills, reconnect with who they really are, and create lives that feel more vibrant and intentional. She's also the co-host of the Sober and Lit podcast, where honest conversations about alcohol, identity, and midlife transformation are front and center. Ruby believes midlife isn't a crisis, it's an awakening. And this conversation is an invitation to get curious about what that awakening might look like for you. You're listening to Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, the no BS podcast for women over 40 who are sick of playing by someone else's rules. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, badass midlife strategist, truth teller, and professional fire starter for midlife reinvention. Around here, we don't do fluff. We do real talk, bold strategies, and badass breakthroughs. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's your damn power move. If you're all in, unapologetic, and ready to reinvent, let's get started. Hey, badass listeners. It's time for another episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. I'm Sue Willoughby, your chief badass strategist. And today we're going to talk about drinking or not drinking or everything in between. And we're talking about alcohol, not just drinking water and pop and, coffee and all that kind of good stuff, which is what we're doing today. We both have our coffees with us.
Yes.
But I want to welcome Ruby Williams to the stage. She is also, as I mentioned previously, the co-host of Sober and Lit, which is a beautiful podcast. You're going to want to check it out after our conversation today. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But Ruby, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Having me on. I definitely identify as a badass. I feel, yes, the word badassery by Brene Brown was like something that just like really clicked for me. And I love it. So when I found out that your podcast name is Badass, I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
I did the rebrand about it over a year ago, and it just seemed like the right thing to do. I identified with it more. So I was like, okay, I just got to go for it. I don't care. But yeah, Ruby and I are in a mastermind group about podcasting. And so that's how we met. And we have a lot of similarities. I've actually been on her podcast and I've interviewed her co-host, Susan Larkin. So it was just natural to have Ruby on the show as well. Yeah. Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, it was such a pleasure. We talked about like horses and stuff
right?
on ours. So we'll see what comes up today on this conversation. Yeah.
You just never know. And that's the beauty of podcasting is you just never know what's going to come up. And I love that part of it because, if I just sat here and asked you a bunch of questions and you just replied, and that would be boring as hell and people would tune out. So we're not going to do that. But I will start off by saying that you were in the wine and champagne industry for a number of years. That was your career, right? You were in sales and marketing. And how'd you get from there to being sober and lit? I'm sure that was an adventure.
Yeah, you're asking like my personal wake up call, so to speak,
Yeah.
because, you know, alcohol is everywhere, everywhere. Family functions, school things, every holiday, baseball game, every family function, birthdays, parties, like you name it, it's everywhere.
Driving in the
And
car. Oh, no, I'm just kidding on that one.
so yeah, my story is my stepdad was a winemaker, and I grew up in wine country. I live in Sonoma County. There's vineyards all over, and in fact, I have a vineyard. I'm looking out my window. I live on a property that has a vineyard, and it's beautiful. But it became a part of my like identity. I started working in the wine industry. Sales and marketing, and really thinking a lot about how can I sell this product. It's really just a liquid, you know, and you
Yeah.
got to make it sexy and desirable. And so a lot of, you would hire really pretty people in the ads and the marketing. I remember one of my marketing campaigns was you need champagne for every celebration, kind of
Oh, yeah.
concept. And people like, yeah. And then I used a lot of words like stock up on champagne for the summer, a lot of stock up and buy lots. But yeah, so though part of my story is like I used food for like coping when I was a child and like in my teens and 20s. I wasn't really like addicted or over misusing alcohol in any way. Earlier on. I could kind of always take it or leave it. I remember,
Hmm.
I would drink something for parties in my 20s, but it wasn't like I overdrank a lot. Then when I started working in the wine industry, it really like, it was almost like everybody was like drinking more and more and more. And it was so normalized. And it was a part
Yeah.
of work. Like you go out to dinner or lunch or dinner with a coworker or even your boss, you are drinking. You could drink on the job. It's because you had to do tastings.
Yeah. I love that.
So yeah. But then what happens with alcohol, with addiction or different substances that are addictive is over time you need more of it to feel that buzz. And for me, another part of my story is I had a lot of like, I call them accelerator events where like some pretty hard things happened in my life where I used food to cope. I had a child custody battle, divorce, a single mom, this corporate job. I had a home foreclosure. Like a lot of things kind of happened in a short
Mm,
period of time. And I
yeah.
gained like 100 pounds. I gained like a lot of weight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a lot. Yeah.
It was a lot because I was using
It's a lot to
food.
lose too.
Yeah. So what I ended up
Yeah.
doing was having bariatric or weight loss surgery. And a lot of people don't know this. I mean, they kind of warned us in the process of getting before I got the surgery. You'd have different doctor's appointments and warnings, and they were like, you shouldn't really drink alcohol after the surgery. But because I worked in the wine industry, yes, I continued to drink, and my drinking really escalated after my bariatric surgery, and for
Hmm.
multiple reasons. One of them is that I didn't change any of my thinking, and if I used food to cope, and then all of a sudden I couldn't cope with food, it can transfer pretty easily to alcohol or something else. It's like called transfer addiction. I'm actually just thinking right now like that a lot of people are doing the weight loss drugs, like Ozempic
Hmm.
and these types of things. So yeah, you change a lot. Like you can't do some of the same behaviors that you were doing, and so you might transfer to, I don't know, playing solitaire for hours or addiction is really interesting. It's it's just a way to cope for a lot of people. If you're having
Yeah.
like emotions, and you just want to escape the or pain in your life. And so if it's happening to you, like you're listening to this and you can kind of ask the question like, am I drinking more than I did a year ago or 5 years ago? Because it keeps going up. And we don't talk anymore about like alcoholic. That's like an old term. now I know it's out there still, but now we say alcohol use disorder and that it's on a spectrum. And
Hmm.
so it's not a label. It's not like it's not your fault. I want to say that so much, and that there's so much hope that you can get help like I did. I'm alcohol free now. I really changed
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
How long?
Transformed, became a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think alcohol free is the new badass, to be honest with you.
It is. It
That's
truly is.
Yeah, that's interesting when you were talking about how initially when you were younger, it was not a big deal for you. I, on the other hand, grew up with an alcoholic parent. So I was surrounded by alcohol in a different way than growing up in a vineyard and a winemaking family. Uh, and and so it was available to me. When I was really young, I mean, like under, like single digits, not like 3 or 4, but I mean, when I was 8, 9, 10, I could get alcohol. It was just there. And so, I always struggled with, self-esteem and to be the cool kid, I drank, right? And
Yeah.
also because I always looked older. I was tall. Like 5'10", and so I looked older than I was, and I could buy alcohol. This was like back in the 70s. I'm talking about. You could have a fake ID and buy alcohol back then. And they really didn't question it. I'm like, geez,
Mhm.
I'm like 13 years old and I'm buying alcohol. But because of that, I was popular. And that was something that I felt made me fit in or allowed me to fit in better. Uh, and, you know, over the years, right, like you said, it starts to compound. When I was in high school, I would, buy alcohol for everybody and, or I'd always have. So it was all those things. So, I mean, I drank consistently and, um, a lot, for my age, uh, from the get go. And then when I became like a later teenager, 18, 19, I came out at 17. And once again, now I had to fit into a whole new community. So what did I do? I got a job as a bartender in a gay bar, right? Of course, because that's how I'm going to meet people. So like you
Yeah.
said, then you're surrounded by it. Then it's like a party thing. And I did. I partied quite significantly because that was the way I felt I fit in. So I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. And it wasn't
Yeah.
a job. I mean, yes, it was a job because I was bartending or whatever, but I mean, that was always kind of like my thing. Uh, and was it out of control? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think because I kind of grew up with it, I thought it wasn't that apparent. Do you know what I mean? You understand? You kind of think like, oh,
Yeah, I do know what you're
I don't
saying
have a
because
problem.
yeah,
I'm just a
it's all
partier.
my friends. Like if I'm working in the wine industry and we're all drinking, more than a bottle, even at an event, or we're all bringing multiple bottles to a party. So no, if
Yeah,
everybody's drinking that much, then it's all okay, right? um,
yeah,
but
exactly.
after a while, I think for me, my first kind of indicator that it was a problem was like waking up in the middle of the night and like
Oh,
having that kind of, I don't know, anxiety or like just beating myself up and like, oh my gosh, I drank again. Wait a minute. I said I wasn't going to drink yesterday. And why did I end up drinking? And I couldn't even, and I think I call it like a Groundhog's Day. I would just, wake up in the morning and go, God, I did it again, and just be so mad. And then I'd say, I'm not going to drink today. I'd vow, in the morning. I remember that, and maybe even throw away the whatever was left over.
yeah.
And then I'd work my corporate job, putting out fires, really busy, really stressful job. And then at the end of the day, I just would be like, I just need one
I
glass
need a
tonight to
drink.
relax. Yeah. And I would say one.
Yeah.
I remember that was like my thing, one, but I never just had one. Never. Like
No.
I would drink the whole bottle, and then eventually I was drinking 2 bottles because it went up and up and up in terms of the
Yeah.
amount. And then it started going earlier in the day. I mean, you can just see where this was going. Yeah. So it just like for decades. And then I'd be like, oh, well, I'll figure it out tomorrow. Tomorrow. That was another thing I kept telling myself. Oh, I'll work on this tomorrow, and I'll stop drinking tomorrow. Or but I don't know. There's
Yeah.
always something, another party, another work event, another this or that. It just kept me in that cycle.
Yeah, and let me ask you this too. I mean, you were in the industry, you worked in the industry. There was always everything, and I even think back to how focused our culture is and was back in the day on alcohol. I mean, I can remember watching, sitcoms in the late 60s, early 70s. Come home from work, they'd have martinis, they'd do
Right.
whatever. And I mean, that really hasn't changed that much. I mean,
Like
alcohol is
Was
prevalent
that Mad
in.
Men? Like
Yeah,
the Mad Men
but I mean,
culture?
even the original
Yeah.
shows that were
Yeah.
created back then. I mean, Bewitched, he'd come home and he'd
That's
have a
right.
he'd have a cocktail. And even now, I mean, people are like, "Hey, let's grab a drink. Hey, let's,"
Yep.
like you
Happy
said, it's
hour.
so
Mhm.
part of our culture that it's hard to step away from. And I think that there's less so now because like you said, sober and lit and being alcohol free and zero proof and all of those things. Also now the alcohol industry is catching up and trying to set a different standard for a lot of people, younger people especially, that are like, yeah, it's not as much of a thing for me,
Mhm.
but I still want to, not imbibe, but I still want to have something similar, right? So the beer manufacturers, I'm sorry, but the wine industry has not gotten a good NA product, really. It's still
Not
kind of
too
crappy,
many. I'll agree.
right?
Yeah, but the
But
NA
the
beer is
beer
amazing.
manufacturers get
Yeah.
it. I love it. And I was a big beer drinker and a gin drinker and a wine drinker anyway. So
And
the
Anna,
beer
yeah,
the
me too.
beer
Anna,
people,
Anna.
yeah. But so, I mean, there's a lot more options available. And it's also, I think there was a real stigma attached to being like, oh, I'm sober. I think that word, and I've said
I
this
know. It's
before,
like a
has this
sober.
like alcoholic. You're either
Yeah.
alcoholic or you're sober. And both of those words to me, like, make the hair in the back of my neck stand up. I mean, they just seem like you're either laying in a gutter covered in your own vomit, or you're, holier than thou, I don't drink and neither should you,
Right.
and,
But there's
whatever else. I
everybody in
don't know.
between that spectrum, right? So
Yes.
there's, yeah, it's a
Right.
spectrum now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. Anyway, that was me. Okay, let me climb down off my soapbox. Okay, there you go. So once you really started questioning things and saying, I mean, how many mornings do you wake up with a really bad hangover? And go, I'm not doing that again, right? Like you said. How
10 or
then did
20
you start?
years.
Right, right, yeah. So how then did you start to make some changes and say, okay, I really think I don't want to drink anymore? Or,
Yeah.
what was your process aside
Yeah.
from beating yourself up and then going right back to it and beating yourself up? I mean, that's not a
Yeah.
very good cycle. So,
Uh, right. I think it all started with health. Like I started to really feel unhealthy. And
mm,
that was probably my first like really unhealthy things were like I had heart pains, liver pains, like started to feel not great at all. And at first I
mm.
think I'm getting older or it's, perimenopause or hormonal or I don't know. I would blame it on everything else but the alcohol. Then I just started asking questions like, am I living up to my full potential? I know that question really, because I would have these like goals in my life, I wanted to be that badass. I really thought, in my mind, I'm a badass, but I realized I was just working, coming home, drinking, watching TV on the couch.
As a
Like
drunk ass.
yeah, yeah, I love that. I was a drunk ass, not a badass. Yeah, and like I wasn't like playing big in my life, doing stepping outside of my comfort zone. I remember I would sign up for like college courses, just like extra college courses and to try to like improve my career or something. And I could never finish them because they'd be night classes and that's when I usually drank. So, I could go to a couple and then I'd have to, just wasn't living up to my full potential. And then I started really wanting, then my next kind of question. So I started to question things, I guess was my first step. And then I was like, how do I want to be as like a grandmother one day? Because I really wanted to, I have a son and I'm not a grandmother yet, but I would visualize, being this grandma. And I thought, boy, if I'm doing what I'm doing now and in 10 years, it's going to be worse. I'm just going to be the drunk ass grandma on the couch. I can't play with the kids and, be vibrant. I want to be vibrant and, have all this amazing life. And so I read This Naked Mind. That was the book that really kind of really worked for me, was because I was trying things on my own for, like I said, probably a full decade, 10 years of,
Mm.
I'll try, going down to one bottle, or these rules. I'd create rules, only drink on the
Yeah.
weekends or whatever. The rules never worked because I was addicted. I always wanted more, more. Um, but when I read This Naked Mind, and in conjunction with Dry January, that was, to me, that really worked. There's this new, it's not that new anymore, but this movement called Dry January and Sober October, and these kinds of where you commit to a month of being alcohol free, or not drinking, or try, or even a damp January. It really can help. It just was like the catalyst for me. I didn't get 30 days at all, not even close, but I got about 14 days in a row, and that's when I went, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. This is what I want in my life, and I'm going to do anything to make this happen. It became the big domino in my life, like the thing.
Hmm.
This is the thing that's holding me back from weight loss, holding me back from living up to my full potential, to my health goals, like all of this. It was alcohol. So, and then yeah. So anyway, that's where it all started. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like that. And it's funny that you mentioned like sober January. I hope people will be like, you know what? I'm gonna do sober February because there's only 28 days. Like,
Right. Oh,
okay,
there is.
you
There's
do you do you, right? Okay. I like how you said damp January.
yeah,
And
people are saying that
I
now.
can totally, yeah, I can totally relate to, and I think a lot of people, like you said, feel like it either has to be all or nothing.
Hmm.
And for some people, when it's this is me personally, when I thought about like all or nothing, all, like you said, didn't feel great. And for me, it was like the pandemic kind of did me in, because it was like, well, why not drink even more, because there's nothing to do tomorrow except sit in the house. So it's not like I have to be super present for that.
Hmm.
Um, but it just, I got to a point where I was like, okay. And I had been questioning, like you said, I had been questioning for a long time. When you're at a dinner party and you have an eye on how much wine is left in the wine bottle and where it's positioned on the
Yeah.
table,
Hmm.
right? All
Hmm.
these little things that you kind of are like, you're like, okay, I'm being really aware of that. And, getting up from dinner, and people hadn't finished their drinks. And I'm thinking to myself, why aren't they finishing their drinks? I'll finish.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I'm just saying, those are the kinds of things that were popping up. And I'm sure that people that are listening would be like, oh, yeah, I have those thoughts too. And you just start building that awareness. And also, I had been through different spiritual uh, things, finding energy work, and working in equine massage, and learning coaching techniques and methodologies, and working with the horses and coaching. And I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I need to be present. I mean, I
Yeah.
really need to be present, especially when I'm working with a 1,200-pound animal. I can't be, sort of half there and half not. But I just wanted to be clear-minded for once in my life. I had tried, like you said, a few days here and there, and it never lasted, because, you're surrounded by, my willpower is like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, let's go have a drink, instead of
Yeah.
going to yoga. But
Exactly.
right. Oh, we have to go by the bar to get to the yoga thing. Let's just go to the bar instead. So it is interesting, though, to start just being aware of these little things that you are clocking in your brain. Like I said, where's the
Yeah.
wine bottle on the table, and how much is left in it, and who's going to get that last bit? That's, when you think about it, and even when I think about it now, I'm like, oh my God, that was really
It
It's
takes up
devastating to me
so much
now.
space. Yeah, it
Oh,
took up
so much
so much space
space.
in my brain. Like, how much am I going to drink tonight? Where am I going to get it? Is
Yes.
it going to be available? Yeah. Am I going to
Where
get
are
it?
we going for, is there
Yeah.
going to be like, yeah, everything's centered around that. And now that I'm not drinking, I see that in other people.
Me too.
And yeah, and it's fine. I understand it. But
Yeah.
not everything that I do needs to center around drinking. Obviously,
Right.
nothing that I do needs to center around drinking, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Now, can I go out to bars and hang out with friends? Yeah, absolutely.
I
Can I
can't
do,
do.
whatever?
Mhm.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me be like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
wish I could have a drink. It doesn't. I'm just like, okay, that's,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
And yeah, and you mentioned awareness, and that really is first, it's really truly the first step is awareness, because you cannot change what you're not aware of.
Mhm.
Most people, if you look at your, drinking, say from, being a child drinking, or, a teenage drinker to now, or whatever, to becoming alcohol free, first you start, you're completely asleep to it. You're just not aware. Everybody's doing it. You're doing it. It's what's expected. It's what your parents did or whatever, and your friends are doing. So it's not even a big deal. It's not even on your radar. And then you become aware, and that honestly, the average is like 7 years. Mine was probably 10 or more years where you're like aware. But then when you really want to make a change, it can become an awkward stage where you are actually, you know, getting really curious and maybe experimenting with an AF day here. And my program and my methodology, it is not about black or white. It's not about stopping drinking first. That's AA, that's rehab.
Yeah.
I really call that an older model. You know that AA is turning 100 years, I think, pretty soon here. I think it was started in the 1920s. So we're almost at
Wow.
100 years. So
During Prohibition. Funny.
I know. Yeah. So the opposite is where you just get curious and aware. And then I teach about self-compassion and like this whole piece that you're not alone. It's not your fault. Alcohol's addictive to everybody. If you're using it to cope for stress or different things, of course, it's everywhere. So you would drink, and then if you drink, you're going to drink more over time, and it's literally like what happens. So it's not your fault.
Hmm.
And then you start to experiment, try different things out, have a day or two here alcohol free, stop that beating yourself up cycle, and learn, the science. Like I really dig deep into the brain chemistry and the science around all this. And then I could do what's called like mindset shifts, the coaching questions to really dig in there and, why are you drinking, and finding different tools to cope. And it's a whole lovely process. And I love working with clients, and having this whole transformation, becoming a badass. I mean, honestly, people literally
Right.
change careers, improve relationships, get healthy, lose weight. Like all these things happen after they get alcohol free, which is so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to that as well. And I had a similar path where, like you said, I started being aware and I like, okay, no, this is too much. And, it's really too much. And I had done enough work on myself personally that I felt strong enough. And I did actually just quit. I think
That's
I
awesome.
may have told you that on my podcast. And
Yeah.
it was, it was actually November 28th. And, so yeah, let's quit right before the holidays. That's awesome. But I didn't have any plans that would, I won't say interfere, but that would be tempting. And the first couple of weeks, I journaled about every day what I was feeling and all of the things, because I learned all these tools to deal with other stuff in my life. And this was that last piece of something that no longer was serving me. And it was really no longer serving me in a really big way. So yeah, the first few days and weeks and whatever, and I didn't do AA, like you said. I think that it works for some people. I mean, it works for
Mhm.
a lot of people. Obviously, it's been around for 100 years. That's great.
Yeah.
It was not something that I resonated with. It
Yeah,
didn't
me
feel
too.
good to me. And I I just said, you know what, I can do this. I feel like I can do that. And honestly, if I could quit drinking, I can literally do anything. And I've done a lot of tough shit in my life. I mean, come on. So this was one more tough thing that I was willing to take on. And I started to feel better and clearer. And when you're clearer, you can make better decisions. But like you said, if you have one drink and then you have a second, your your decision making gets very cloudy, and you're like, well, I've already had two, I might as well have three, and then everything's out, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
think if you can clear your mind, you can make better decisions in every aspect of
absolutely.
your life, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, I mean, that is so amazing that you just did it on your own. You are such a
Yeah.
badass because many, many people do need help though. They like
Yeah, oh,
try their
absolutely, yeah.
own, and it can get lonely to do this all on your own. And so, yeah, that's why I love to coach around this, to be that support, that cheerleader, like, and
Absolutely.
then like marking, your progress, what you gain, and really when you feel down, when like a client feels down, or they feel less motivated, I can cheer them on and help them with all the tools. So it's just really, really a beautiful process. I call it like a whole journey, really, a journey to
Yeah, it is a journey.
transform. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's almost
it
even
was
a
a journey
spiritual
to
awakening
get
for
there.
me. Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
It
Well,
was such,
and I had done, like I said, I'd done a lot of spiritual work and, energy work and all of those things, and had coaching and therapy. And I just got to a point where, like I said, I felt confident that I was like, okay, this is the time. I need to honor this decision. And I feel good about it. I was ready. I think you can't do anything unless you're ready. And and
right.
and yes, I highly encourage people to reach out to people like yourself and get a coach, get someone who's going to help you celebrate those things, because a lot of times, we don't celebrate the wins in our life,
I know.
even in
We
small things.
should. Yeah.
Yeah, we should. Definitely should, because it is a big deal. And I think part of it, I think a lot of it for some people is saying out loud when you're with your friends, no, thank you, I don't drink,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Uh,
That is when you actually have an identity
it's
shift. When you
huge.
can say, I just
Yeah.
don't drink, or I'm a non-drinker.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is when it's super easy. You have no desire. I mean, that is where I want everybody to get to, is that I do this
Yeah.
work because I just want people to have no desire and live up to their full potential and live this like vibrant, badass life, which is available. And there is so much hope. I think it's hope is also, you have to
Mhm.
be open and willing and ready, right? But have the hope, and the hope is so cool, because if you just don't think it's possible and you have no hope, then you won't even take that first step. So there is
Yeah.
so much hope.
There is. And like you said, when you start to get a little bit of clarity, everything builds exponentially. It's just like how the journey that got you to the place where you decide to quit drinking. It was a journey. It was like, oh, I'll just have a glass of wine, and then the next, and it builds and it builds and it builds. It builds in the other direction too, in a positive way. I had a clear day. I had a clear week. Oh my God, I have so much more energy. I'm sleeping better. I can make decisions. I can, I can taste the food when we go out to dinner. I'm not washing it down with a bottle of wine. All of those things. And I
Yeah,
do
I
think
call it
that,
renewable energy, and I use my little like
oh yeah.
spiral. I use it all the time. I'm like, yeah, because if you're gonna sleep is so important, and alcohol disrupts
Hmm.
sleep. Period. Like full
Yeah.
stop. Period. Alcohol disrupts your sleep, and that's when you're making memories and you're healing, and you're processing emotions, dreaming. All of that happens when you sleep, and even just that one thing, like getting better sleep. But once you get better sleep, you have more energy in the mornings. You're more likely to make better decisions. Then you're
Hmm.
going to make better decisions around food, exercise. You'll have that energy. You'll feel better, and again, then you'll sleep better. And I call this like it just keeps going up and up and up. It spirals up. Renewable energy, towards badassery. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you're using the word badass a lot in this podcast. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
It's
So
a
I
word
have
I
a
really
question for you.
resonate with. Yeah.
I have a question for you. Are most of your clients women? And a couple questions. Are most of your clients women? If so, what are your thoughts around that? And if not, what's the percentage of men to women? And do you think that women, there's a lot of questions here. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm
You're
question
just you're
stacking.
stacking them.
Uh, Question stacking. Well, it's all around gender, right? And I
Okay.
want to, I guess the base question is, do you think that women question their drinking more than men do?
That's such a good question. Women's bodies are different. And
Mhm.
what happens, what we found when I'm doing the research and things, is that men tend to be on a slower trajectory, and question it much later. Women will get
Interesting.
addicted faster in general, and they are more likely to reach out and get help faster. So like, yes, I mostly work with women. A lot of times people seek out coaches that are similar, have a similar story or like them, right? So that we can,
Yeah,
uh,
it's
resonate,
relatable. Yeah.
relate. But I absolutely do coach men as well. But percentage wise, I'd say it's a lot, like maybe 10%. I'm mostly like 90% women, um, all different ages, from like, I would say the youngest, which I'm so excited when I have these young, like 35-year-old, because I was still like, I was asleep to my whole problem at 35. But I think some, women, it's definitely, this alcohol-free movement is being talked about more. People want to be healthier. But I also have clients that are like 85. So, okay. So anywhere in
Mm.
between, but, yeah, I love working with them all. I feel like there was a question I'm missing. So yeah, mostly women's bodies do handle alcohol different, and they can become,
Yeah, that's another question that I
yeah.
had. Like we process it differently, and with menopause and all of the things, I noticed too that when you're younger, you wake up with a banging hangover, and you're like, that's fine. I'm fine,
Yeah, no
right?
big deal.
And the older you get, you're like, holy shit, did I get run over by an 18 wheeler? It's going to take me a minute to get out of bed this morning, right? So
Yeah.
I think we process alcohol differently as we age.
Yeah. But a lot of women that I work with, I love my like little group that I love so much is people that have had weight loss surgery, people that have had
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
that I call it like a dual addiction, food maybe binging, or food addiction and then alcohol addiction. Like that, to me, those go hand in hand. Um, I really love working with those people. But gosh, it's so interesting. A lot of like health care type people, because you're helping others, teachers, nurses, um, that group, I enjoy where I don't know, everybody, you name a profession, I kid you not, it's heavy drinking. Like people are, oh no, the lawyers are no, it's the whatever, the construction workers. No, it's interesting. It doesn't, what my point is it doesn't, alcohol addiction can affect anybody,
Mhm.
income, age, gender, different groups. It's everywhere is the point, I guess I'm trying to make. It's everywhere, unfortunately.
Well, it is everywhere,
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
because it has become our culture.
Hmm.
It is our culture. And like you said, I feel that that culture is shifting, and the alcohol industries are slowly adapting to, oh, well, we can, I mean, let's face it, you go in to out to dinner or whatever, if there's an alcohol-free option, it is as expensive, if not more, than the alcohol. Yeah, I mean the non-alcohol version of
Yeah.
something is as expensive, if not more, than the alcohol version. So
Yeah.
they're still making money on
Yeah.
mocktails or on, whatever. And I do love that the, bartenders are embracing,
Hmm.
creative mocktails
Me
for
too.
non-drinkers. For I just think, I'm not a big mocktail drinker because I don't like, fancy stuff, but But that or alcohol-free beers or even the spirits are that they're coming out with are tasty and like especially gin. I really loved gin and a lot of the botanicals and stuff you can recreate without the alcohol content. So
Yeah.
I love that the alcohol industry is getting on board
Yeah.
because if they don't, not that everybody in the world is going to quit drinking. So, uh,
Yeah, it's kind of I equate it to like cigarettes, right?
oh my God.
Back
Yeah.
in the day, right? Doctors would smoke cigarettes on
The
commercials or
Marlboro
whatever.
Man.
And
The Marlboro Man.
yeah,
Remember when
exactly.
you remember when they banned cigarette smoking commercials or cigarette commercials
I
on, I
do.
mean, that was just like a big deal because that was a huge
Right.
advertising industry.
Right.
Huge.
Well, I think it's
Same thing now.
similar. And now,
Yeah.
because they didn't know about the health risks, now we know about the health risks with alcohol. It was kind of brushed under the rug. And honestly, the alcohol industry really was funding a lot of these studies. And the lobbyists in the alcohol industry are huge. They were keeping things on the down low. They were promoting the articles like, red wine is heart healthy, and I bought into that 100%, because I wanted to keep drinking. But the truth is now even, it's zero. The World Health Organization is saying zero alcohol is the healthiest for a human body. So, yeah, it's just now we're just looking at health more around alcohol and what it's really causes cancer, it causes different diseases, it causes dementia. So it's really affecting all of your organs, your skin, your eyesight. I started losing my eyesight at the
Really?
last,
Wow.
yeah. So things can heal. So I want to go back to hope. Things can heal. My organs
Yeah.
have healed, and my skin looks better. You look younger. It's also, going
Yeah.
AF is it's the best kept secret for like the fountain of youth is just stop drinking alcohol and you'll look younger, you'll look fresher, your eyes are brighter. Yeah. There's so many reasons.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
There are
Yeah.
so many good reasons. And so I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about, and
I
I think
know.
we've both been clear about our journeys and how far we've come. And it's interesting when you were talking about having the surgery. Um, that's a big deal. I mean, to your body, and like you said, you weren't really aware that. Oh, I mean, or well, they did tell you not, don't drink alcohol after your surgery. Because I do know that, I've talked to other friends that have had that where you have to eat specific things at specific, in a specific order and all of that. So that was really extreme. But I do understand too what you're saying about one addiction turns into another. So if people quit drinking, maybe then they start eating more or,
Yeah, I work
replacing that
both
with
ways.
something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
methodology
So
and coaching that I do can help with any habit. Like I definitely work people with food, with other habits you either want to stop or that you maybe want to start. I also can help people start something healthy. Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, so go for the carrot instead of the chocolate bar like I do. Uh, I do love chocolate. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I don't think that that was replacing alcohol or anything, but I do love me some chocolate. Chocolate chip cookies are my
Yeah.
favorite.
Okay.
So let me just, as we're kind of, as we're kind of getting ready to wrap things up here, what would you tell someone? Like, what would be your biggest piece of advice? And we've already touched on it, but I'd love to, if somebody is curious or they're like, man, boy, this podcast and all the things you talked about are bringing up some pretty interesting things for me. What would you tell them?
Yeah. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to repeat it because it is so important that it's not your fault. Like you're not broken if you're drinking more than you intend or that you want to, and that you're not alone, that this is happening to so many people. It happened to me, and that change is possible. I think those three things, like that change is possible. There's so much hope. You're not alone. You're not broken. And then just start questioning, asking yourself questions like, is my life good enough? Is alcohol adding to my life or is it just like draining it? Or how is this going to play out in my life if I keep drinking? Because it does over time increase. And then you could ask yourself the question that I asked too, like, am I living up to my full potential? And, is it the alcohol, or is it another habit that's keeping you from becoming a badass in your life, you know? So I think just asking those questions and knowing that you're not alone in this. I felt so alone. That's why I just felt like that in that middle of the night. What am I, is this me? Is anybody else? Like, I felt so alone. I couldn't figure it out on my own. And I'm like, I'm so smart in my career and high functioning, but why can't I
Yeah.
figure this out? And it kept me like, and then I didn't want to call myself an alcoholic, right? So it kept me actually probably drinking more because I didn't want to get help, because then I would be an alcoholic. So I don't like that word. I don't like that label. I will never
Yeah.
call, I mean, we use it because it's out there in the world, but it's just, you're just misusing alcohol, or you just need some new coping tools. So there's just so much hope. That's what I
I
want to
love
share.
that. You're not alone. You're not an alcoholic. And so, where can people, if they are, and I love this term, if they're sober curious, how can they find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, I hope that you'll have the links in the show notes too.
Yes, I will.
But because maybe someone's driving, yeah. But I'm
Oh, yeah.
my
No, no, no. It'll
my
be in the show notes.
yeah, my handle is like Ruby Williams Coaching. You should be able to find me there. You can listen to the Sober and
Mhm.
Lit podcast, Sober and Lit. I'm gonna share with the listeners, your listeners, Sue. It's a little private podcast that I put together. It's called
Cool.
5 Steps to Say Yes to an Alcohol-Free Life. And it's literally it's about mindset shift. It's like the very first step to like, what should I do next? Or why can't I say yes to this? And so I would love for you guys to it's free, it's just 5 or 6 short audio, kind of like a podcast. And it helps you to shift your mindset and empower you to just say yes to yourself. So
I love
yeah,
that.
those are a couple of places. And my business name is Freedom Renegade Coaching, but you can find me again with Ruby Williams Coaching. I use both.
Perfect.
So I'd love to
Yeah, I
talk
love
to
that.
you.
Sober and Lit podcast, and I love the little mini private podcast that people can listen to and start that conversation in their head without
Yeah.
actually having to take a step to talk to somebody. I love that too, because some people are a little shy about this whole thing.
Yeah.
So don't be shy. If you're inspired by this podcast or curious about what is happening with you and your relationship with alcohol, reach out to Ruby, listen to her 5 steps, share this podcast with a friend that you think it might resonate with. That's not creepy or weird. That is just being a good friend. And, maybe they'll be a little resistant, but that's okay. It may start that conversation for them. So until next week, Ruby, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you. And this is Sue Willoughby, Chief Strategist here at Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, and I will see you next week.
Hi, my name is Adam Shibley. I'm the host of Podcasting Business School, and I am the creator of the Podcast Growth Coach Certification Program. And today I'm here to brag on my newest certified podcast growth coach, Sue Willoughby. Sue has really excelled as she's gone through the certification process, which was not easy, by the way. She completed all the homework. She did all the testing. She even did a one-on-one final exam with me. And I was just continuously impressed from week to week, the improvement that she made. And I'm really impressed at the creativity that she displayed, but also her ability to effectively communicate and coach people. So if you're somebody who feels like your podcast could use a little bit of a pick-me-up, if you feel a little bit stuck with your download growth or maybe in need of a rebrand, I highly, highly, highly recommend talking to Sue and talking about getting her help with your podcast growth.
Hey, it's me, Sue Willoughby, your certified podcast growth coach. If you are pod curious, I encourage you to book your podcast success call today. The link is in the show notes.